Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to talk about my life as a COVID ICU attending. So I get a lot of questions from people that say you're a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist, you're also an ICU physician. Tell me about your life in the COVID era. And in Houston, unfortunately, over the last couple months, we've really seen an increase in the number of COVID cases. But I want to give you a day in the life of me when I'm on the COVID ICU side. So typically, I'll start my day around 5 a.m. or so. I'll wake up, I'll come to the computer, I'll get some coffee going at the same time, of course, and I'll log into the EMR. What I'm looking for are new admissions, updates on my patients from the evening time, notes left from consultants, nursing notes from overnight, new labs, the results of diagnostic testing, so on and so forth. And I want to go ahead and start pre-writing a lot of my progress notes for the day. So I'm not going to put any orders in yet because I haven't seen the patient, but by going through the charts of all these patients and kind of getting a mental idea of what's happened since I left the hospital, it gives me an idea of A, what we should focus on during the daytime, and B, the results of any changes we may have made the previous day. So typically I'm doing that until maybe 6:15, 6:30 or so. This is typically also the time where I try to come up with a post to put on Instagram. So if anyone was wondering, it's the morning hours where I'm the most productive. Then I will proceed to go to my car. The hospital, depending on which one I'm at, could be as far as 35 miles away. So that can be about half an hour to 45-minute commute. And fortunately, there's not too much traffic these days, so it tends to be okay. But nevertheless, depending on the hospital I'm going to, sometimes rounds and handoff are closer to 7-ish, and other times it's closer to 8. So I'll get there about 15, 20 minutes before handoff, get report from the overnight nurse practitioner or hospitalist, and then go straight to the unit and walk around. Now, when I'm walking around, I'm trying to get report from the overnight nurses, respiratory therapists, but more importantly, I'm walking around just to see if there's anyone that's crashing. I want to first establish and make sure the unit is stable. And at a lot of these places, it's a unit that's split between 2 intensivists. I'm one of them, but there's no residents, there's no fellows. It's just us, and at some places, a pharmacist and a nurse practitioner. So very few personnel to manage a lot of patients. Fortunately, we have respiratory therapists and nurses who are wonderful. They do an incredible job, especially dealing with the COVID pandemic. There are a lot of other healthcare providers that are involved, don't get me wrong, but these two in particular, when you're dealing with primarily a pulmonary pandemic, they're invaluable. So I'm asking the respiratory therapists and the nurses, hey, what are you concerned about? What do you think we should be doing? And that helps me kind of frame what we should be doing for the day. They spend more time with the patient than anyone else. So I'm kind of a glorified secretary to a certain extent, and that's kind of the joke that I have with them. But it's a team thing. Just like everything else in medicine, we have to come to a consensus and decide, is this plan feasible? And are we making progress? And are we keeping the family updated? But I'll get to that in a second. So I'll start rounds, typically maybe 30 minutes after I get there. First, I gotta go to the physician's lounge. I gotta grab some coffee. This is just me. I gotta start my day off this way. I'll get to my office, put my stuff down, and then proceed straight back to the unit. And now this time I'm with my computer on wheels. So I'll go around and start rounding with my bedside colleagues, the nurses and the respiratory therapists. And we'll talk about vent management, we'll talk about changes in sedation, electrolyte repletion, nutrition, anything else going on with regards to infectious disease and endocrinology. Renal function is a big one, especially in COVID patients. And to a certain extent, a lot of these ICUs are also managing non-COVID patients. So people are still coming out with STEMIs and other cardiac issues too. So it's kind of any and all. And the farther I've gone, the more and more I'm seeing other pathologies, not just COVID. Depending on how many patients I'm following, rounds can take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. I try to go a little quick. It helps that I pre-round in the morning. That helps me tremendously because by the time I get to the hospital, my notes are already constructed and I just have to fill in updated lab values, medications, any plans I discuss with the treatment teams and consultants throughout the day. So that actually really helps me get a huge head start. And the hour and a half or so I spend at home probably saves me a lot more time once I get to the hospital. Then in the afternoons, that's when I really spend time calling families. So during the COVID era, families aren't allowed to come to the hospital unless we are withdrawing care or transitioning to end-of-life measures and things like that. So for the most part, we don't really encounter families face-to-face. We talk to them over the phone or Zoom conferences, things like that. And this is extremely important. So when families can't be at the bedside, we need to stay in communication with them every single day and let them know, what are we thinking? Why are we doing what we're doing? Kind of have them understand each day and the sequence that we're approaching the management of their loved ones. And this, in a sense, establishes a lot of rapport and helps family members understand that we are working with their family, with the patient, trying to help them through this as opposed to doing things on them. And that's something you never want to be able to convey, because you never want to be thinking like that. You have to be able to think about things in the perspective of working with patients and their families and caretakers to get them through this acute illness. A lot of the times I have to be the bearer of bad news. Not all patients make it through COVID. So I have to have these tough discussions with patients and their family members in particular over the phone. And it's tough to tell them, like, we've tried X, Y, and Z. This has kind of been the progression. And this goes back to the importance of keeping them updated every single day, because they themselves can see that, they really aren't doing that great. And they start to realize kind of the issues that we're dealing with as a medical team, and ultimately the futility of care and the importance of focusing on comfort at those end of life moments. So these are very difficult discussions to have. But honestly, as an intensivist, this is one part of my job that I feel that I'm able to make a difference. I'm able to connect with families in their most dire hours and let them know that we're trying our absolute best, and sometimes we've tried our absolute best and exhausted all options. And at this point, we need to focus on comfort, or we need to focus on what the patient would want. I start off my conversations with families asking them what's their understanding of what's been going on. Before I start telling them we did this, we did this, we did this, I have to get a feel for what their understanding is, and I build off of that. And that just goes back to understanding that there's a disparity between the medical team and patients' families with regards to an understanding of what's happening and just being able to see them in this case. So it's important to have these discussions daily. So after I talk to the families, I go back through all the charts and review updated vital signs, labs, any new imaging, notes from consultants and other treatment team members. And then I update my progress note accordingly and submit them. By the end of the afternoon, I'm pretty tired. I'm constantly walking around the unit, seeing if the nurses, respiratory therapists, pharmacists, anyone needs any help with anything at that point. And by the end of the day, I'm probably getting out around 8 or 9 o'clock. Depending on the hospital, again, it can be a long drive home. So I kind of kick back and let autopilot do most of the work while I enjoy some music. And then get home, put my car to charge, and start making my way back to the apartment. And once I get back, the work's not done. I mean, I've had a whole day of emails because I'm still clinical faculty, and I still have things I have to do with regards to giving presentations, lectures, research, all these things that have been accumulating throughout the day that I have to address once I get home. And then eventually 11 midnight or so, I'll get some rest and wake up the next morning, 5 o'clock, and start again. So starting today, I'm actually back on the anesthesia side, and I don't go back to the ICU for another 2 to 3 weeks or so. But having this balance between operating room and ICU settings is wonderful. It's a great mix, and I feel like being in one makes me better in the other. And I feel like I'm able to offer things having an anesthesia background that other people may not be able to offer with regards to pain control or just understanding hemodynamics and ventilator management, because I've been doing it for a really, really long time. And I think it goes to show the versatility in perioperative training. I get to work with pulmonologists who are amazing. They've really shown me the ropes, because admittedly, as an anesthesiologist, MICUs are really not my thing. I'm more trained for SICU style environments, post-operative settings. So COVID and all the challenges it comes with has been a lot of learning for me. Keeping up with the research, keeping up with the trends, and just trying to be a good steward of evidence-based medicine. So that's it. If you all have any questions, drop me a comment below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care, guys.